It's kind of cold in here today. The weather here is just kind of, I don't know. The weather is just strange, to be honest with you. In Washington this time of year, it's just, I don't know. It's different. It's really different. And you never really know like what to do. You turn the furnace off and try to like winterize it, and then you end up with it being super cold. So it's like you really don't know what to do. So it doesn't work. So this, especially in the man cave, it gets icy cold in here, and so it sucks. But anyway, you guys don't care about all of that, right? You are caring more about what this video is about. So Bellevue, Washington, right? I don't talk a lot about Bellevue, Washington, because the reality is Bellevue is out of reach for most people. I had someone say, in a comment that they think that Bellevue is going to be the next it city. Because someone asked, what's going to be the next it city that people are moving to after Tacoma, and they said Olympia, question mark. Remember I did that video? And someone replied and said, wrong. It's going to be Bellevue. And so Zara's crying because she's getting her hair brushed, and Noelle just goes from the top down. And it's like, she didn't hold it much. She just boom, and so it hurts. So she's crying. And also Zara's easily to upset. The littlest thing and she'll cry. But anyway, so if you hear that, that's what's going on, right? But, so let's talk about Bellevue. Hold on. I stand corrected. That wasn't Zarbine. That was actually Zeta. Both are very tender-headed. But anyway, so he was saying, no, it's going to be Bellevue, because Bellevue, Amazon's focused there, and all of the tech companies are focused there, and Amazon's adding this many thousands of people, and they're building all these big, tall, super buildings and all this other stuff, and it's going to be Bellevue. People are moving here like crazy and all this other stuff, right? And so he says, I disagree with you, and that's cool. But let's talk about Bellevue in a little bit more of a deeper dive. Not super deep, but a little bit of a deeper dive. The reason why I say that Tacoma, and the reason why Tacoma is a hot market, is because right now Bellevue is surging. Because when you put all of the emphasis of $2 trillion companies in one area, anywhere in the country, you're going to have a lot of people gravitate to that. So Bellevue by itself, if you take away Microsoft and Amazon, you don't really have much of a city. But because you have those two businesses locate there, and now Microsoft is more or less in Redmond, but they do have presence there, then you start drawing everybody in, Facebook and all these other people, right? They talk about T-Mobile's headquarters is there. I used to work for T-Mobile, by the way, and it's not downtown. It's kind of on the outskirts of Bellevue, but because when they located there, Bellevue wasn't all that. Only recently, dang, that's a big fuzz. Only recently has Bellevue start to look the way that it does, and it is quite impressive. But again, without Amazon making the approach the way that it has, you would not have what you have in Bellevue. And the reason why you're seeing the dramatic shift over is because of the simple fact that Seattle has such a very tax-heavy view when it comes to companies. And so when you start trying to basically take out your golden goose, which doesn't make sense, by the way, and tax them super heavy to solve a lot of social ills versus doing things differently on the city level, I do believe that businesses should be taxed, obviously, but there should be better ways to do it than what they're doing. You have these potential issues, right? There's a lot of waste in city government. Not only city, but state and federal. There's a lot of waste. There's a lot of things that can be done a lot more affordably. There's a lot of positions that are not needed. And so, yeah, you end up with a city that's desperate for funds, but you have all these people moving in. You have all these companies paying taxes, because they do. Amazon still has to pay taxes. It's just federally. This is a little bit different, but they definitely have to pay state and local taxes. And so You don't want to continuously just go after them when you need to do other things to better run the city. That's just my opinion, right? Not this isn't something that's political, right? I'm not that type of person, right? I know it's not Valentine's Day, but this is the only mug I could find that was clean. But that's the reason why you're having to shift over to Bellevue, because of all of these taxes that the city of Seattle is trying to create and trying to find ways to pay for things. But the reason why, and if you look at Bellevue, their population in the last 10 years have jumped up to like 26,000 people. So in 10 years, it jumped to 26,000, jumped by 26,000 people. So it's around the 150,000 range. About 150,000 people live there, roughly. And half of that population are foreign born, based on some of the estimates that people have. If you look at Bellevue in 1990, damn near anybody could get a house in Bellevue. I'm just saying. It wasn't that expensive to get a house in Bellevue, Washington, right? It just wasn't. There was nothing really there. You can even see throwbacks. You can see remnants of what it used to look like. If you look at some of the homes, they're just basic. A lot of the houses you see there are not these opulent homes. So when people say, I live in Bellevue, when did you live there? Well, I grew up there, actually. Well, that's no different than saying I grew up in Federal Way, or I grew up in Puyallup, or I grew up in Everett. It's just that Bellevue happened to luck up and get Microsoft, Amazon, and all this other focus. And now you have a huge price value, because if you look at Mercer Island's always been expensive. And some of these other places, it's all due to proximity. I mean, these are facts. And available space. And Bellevue had plenty of that at one point in time. Now they're starting to build up and cluster up, but they still have a lot of space to go. And Bellevue also has the luxury of being, especially when you have a place that's very affluent, not necessarily due to the people that live there. Let's understand that, because sometimes people throw shade at some of these other outlying cities, especially South Seattle on down. They throw shade at those people. They throw shade at people who live north of Seattle, people out east. But the reality is those places, and I've been through there, I've looked at stuff, I have realtor friends that can go back and look at you could look at records. These homes are not what you think. They're just normal, everyday homes. And if you happen to just be there at the right time and buy a home, and you only paid a little bit of money, what most people on the average paid back then, you're now sitting on a gold mine, right? Now, that's not to take away from the fact that you do have a more affluent population that's moved in, sure. But you have a big crop of people who are in this edge city, which is what, and edge cities typically do very well anyway. If you look at a lot of edge cities in the country, that kind of happens, right? And there's a few in the country where headquarters will go. They want to be close to the big city, where you have your sports venues and you have the cultural activities and all that, but they want to go to the edge cities, which are just basically fancy suburbs, and that's where they want to put their businesses. That's happened forever. So leave the big city, go to a mostly white suburb, invest your money, and still pull from the city. So you're pulling from the strength of the big city, but you're really not investing in the big city. It's nothing to be proud of. And that's one of the things that I wish that the city leaders would have focused on when it comes to Amazon and others, is to not do that. Now, one company that gets a lot of respect, in my opinion, is REI. REI was going to also do the same thing and just basically go to Bellevue and put a massive headquarters there. And they decided not to do that, and instead split their headquarters up into regional headquarters, which is a lot smarter because you're spreading the wealth. You're not putting it all in one area. When you look at it from a traffic standpoint, Bellevue is not designed or built to be as built up as it is downtown. The roads are extremely narrow. It's a town. But then when you have all of these businesses that are just locating there, and you have all these big giant apartment buildings and condos going up, and you now turn Bellevue into the second largest commercial core in the state behind Seattle, you end up with a place that has horrible traffic. And that's exactly what's going on with Bellevue. Now, people will say that Bellevue is getting the light rail system. And that's true. They're actually building the light rail line. It's going to have a subway system, and they're spending a whole lot of money in terms of Bellevue. And it's going to be underground and all of that, because they're trying to make Bellevue Seattle number 2, Seattle 2.0, right? It's across from Lake Washington. So it's basically Bellevue 2.0, or Seattle 2.0. And when you look, there's not a lot of infrastructure there. Excuse me. Coming over from Seattle, you take I-90, and then you have the 405 that goes up, and it goes actually around the city, kind of. I mean, it cuts through downtown a little bit, right? And that interstate is really the only thing that you have to get you there, to navigate north and south of the city, right? And that's pretty much it. You have, another Highway 520. I forget what it's actually called. There's a local name for it. But it's a toll bridge, right? It's a toll road. So you can't really count it. I mean, you could, but you can't really count it. People do take it. But most people like myself are going to try to take the free option, and it backs up. So what happens is that you have traffic. Right in Seattle, you have a couple of choke points. And this is something that is a major, major issue. Right there at I-5, as you're coming up from the south or coming down from the north, there is a choke point that's basically in Chinatown, or the International District, whatever you want to call it, in Seattle. And that choke point is mainly due to Bellevue, and also mainly due to how the interstate came so far after Seattle developed as a really dense city, right? Seattle has always been somewhat dense. And so you have some of these, right there in I-5, it goes from being pretty wide to just narrow. There's parts that jet out, but it gets down to just a couple of lanes for you to go north. And so you're basically taking a wide group of cars and you're trying to squeeze them into a couple of lanes. That's one of the issues. The other issue is going over towards the east, which is right there where Bellevue is. And so it is a massive choke point. And once you get out of that choke point, traffic is flowing pretty good. It's just that choke point. You're able, once you get past that and you see REI right in downtown Seattle, after you see that, you're good. Traffic flows a little better. Still heavy, but it flows a lot better. It's not like you're just, ready to hit someone, because a lot of times accidents happen right there. It's just very bottleneck. Once you pass the convention center and all that, you're in good hands. But Bellevue is one of the causes of that too. It doesn't help. And so the light rail system's great. It will connect people from Seattle to Bellevue a lot faster, and do all of that. But it still does not change the fact that you have a massive traffic issue in the city. And so when we talk about some of the negative points, there's a few. Traffic is one of them. Cost is another. And this is the reason why I said that Bellevue is not going to be the next it city. It's getting a huge amount of attention because you have Amazon and Facebook and everybody else that lands there. And you have a lot of people that move there who have a lot of money to throw at it. Most of them are coming from California, and most of them are not from the U.S. originally. Wasn't born here. I mean, this is based on data from the census. So they're getting all of that, right? And so they're saying that Bellevue is the third largest city in Washington, which is not correct. That's inaccurate. I'm reading this thing from 2020. And they're saying that just east of Seattle, across the waters of massive Lake Washington, Bellevue is the third largest city in Washington. That's incorrect. It's probably the fourth. There's Seattle. Second is either Spokane or Tacoma. There's only a few hundred people difference there. There used to be solid Spokane, but Tacoma has rapidly accelerated and got up there pretty quick, and Spokane's just a natural, gradual growth. We've actually benefited from the affordability standpoint of people not being able to afford these other places, and we're skyrocketing in terms of population. And then fourth would be Bellevue, but they're not the third largest. They're in King County. So here's where the problem lies for Bellevue and why you're not going to have, it's not going to be the it city. Any place where most of the homes are going to be north of $800 and something thousand, which it's more expensive than Seattle, you're not going to have a lot of people that's jumping into the fray. A lot of the growth that you see in terms of population are apartments. So it's not this, it's kind of like I don't know how to explain it, but it's not a real thing to gloat about, because no one can technically say that, hey, all of these people are moving in and they can afford to live here. A lot of them are tech workers who are living downtown in apartments, and when they do decide to have a family, where are they going to go? There's not a lot of available space to build homes in Bellevue, and the price for homes are so expensive that a lot of those people who even work at Amazon, Microsoft, Facebook, and etc. can't even afford themselves. This is what happened in San Jose, California. It used to be trust me, that was a place I was going to move to. I got into IT. I'm telling you. And as soon as I graduated, the bubble burst in terms of IT, and it was horrible. But prior to that, the professor told us if you're willing to live in a mobile home or an RV and you're still making $100,000 a year, then San Jose is the place for you. And so when you think about it, quality of life, eventually folks are going to say, meh, that's a little too much for me. And the reason why I say that's the case is because you have a lot of people who work at Amazon and Microsoft and all these other places who live down here. I remember just 3 years ago, you rarely saw a Tesla in Tacoma. And to see a high-end car like a Lamborghini or a Porsche was just, it was like, what? Now, every other car is a Tesla. Now, I'm not saying that correlates to anything, but just follow me. Now, every other car you see is a Tesla. Now you're seeing a ton of luxury cars. A guy I know has a nice luxury car. In fact, there was made the news. They were racing across the Narrows Bridge, 3 luxury cars, and the police pulled them over, right? So a lot of wealthy people who, instead of paying, $1.3 million for a house with barely a yard, is saying, why not live in a place like Tacoma? Because I get actual city vibes. Bellevue looks like a city, but it's not really, it doesn't give you the feel of a city when you start to look for the cultural amenities. And people will say, that's not true. It looks it because you look at all the buildings and you see that there's a mall downtown. It's like, ooh, but it doesn't have a lot. Now, I'm not saying it never will, but it doesn't have a lot of cultural amenities. When you try to look for things to do in Bellevue, there are a few things that you can definitely do. One is, when you say what's the best things to do, the Bellevue Downtown Park. And they say that this was conceived in 1983. It's 21 acres comprising the downtown park in Bellevue. It has a 240-foot wide waterfall. It's manicured promenade, all of that, right? You can overlook and see the downtown skyline. We've been there. We've seen it, right? And as a matter of fact, had they not thought forward to actually have this park a long time ago, this would have been developed and it would be buildings. So it was good that they had the foresight to actually say, let's put a park down there. Second thing, Bellevue Arts Museum, right? It's called BAM, which is pretty cool. They have that. They have the Bellevue Botanical Garden. They have Mercer Slough Nature Park. Now, I've never been to this. The next thing to do is Cougar Mountain Regional Wildland Park, which is basically just a park. It's 10 miles southeast of Bellevue. It's 3,000 acres. The park has 35 miles of trails to navigate, right? Lake Sammamish. So they say it looks like a puddle compared to Lake Washington. Lake Washington's huge. They have the Kids Quest Children's Museum. They have Mindenbeyer, I'm saying that wrong, Beach Park. They have the mall downtown, which is called the Bellevue Collective. So they say there's 3 distinct shopping areas in Bellevue's downtown district. You have Bellevue Square, Lincoln Square, and Bellevue Place. All of them are expensive, right? It just makes sense. You have a very expensive city. And then you have Bellevue Zip Tours. I guess it's a place where you can go and you can do zip lining, right? And that's pretty much it. That's it. The other things they say you can do is a day trip to Seattle, and they talk about Mount Rainier National Park, right? That's it. It's not a city where you can say as a family of 4 or 5 or 6, this is great, because there's not a lot to do, honestly, other than shopping, right? There's just not a lot. Down here, the reason why it's more of an it city is because it's affordable. You don't have to break the bank to do it. It's not like when you go to the mall, every store in there is a luxury store with a few smatterings of other things. If you're just a regular person who has a regular job and you live in Bellevue because you've been there for a while, it's almost like you're out of place now because everything is pretty much kind of expensive. I'm not saying that it's not a great city. It is. But if someone had the choice, and I rarely get people who say, give me information about Bellevue, or hey, I want to move to Bellevue, or hey, I want to move to Mercer Island or Redmond. I never hear that. I hear about Kirkland. I hear it about Linwood. I hear it about Marysville. I hear it about Issaquah. But I never hear people say, I want to move to Bellevue, because they already know they're priced completely out of the market. If they can't afford Seattle, they definitely can't afford Bellevue. So while the population is at 26,000 and it has beat Tacoma in terms of population in the last 10 years, that is due to people being able to move into apartments. When we're talking about having an actual, to build your own generational wealth and have an actual home, people come down here to Tacoma because of the simple fact you're able to have a house, a decent sized house, decent sized yard, which Seattle can't really offer for the same price. Seattle, you're going to get a yard, things like that. Bellevue, you get a yard and things like that, but it's much more expensive, right? Much more expensive. When you throw in some of the other things that are a problem with Bellevue, because it's not designed to be the size that it is. It's a high cost of living, traffic congestion is a big issue, and then the overcrowded schools. And it talks about, since the population of Bellevue is quite large, the schools can be overcrowded and competitive. It's quality of life issue. All 3 of those things are quality of life. And that is what the gentleman who responded is missing, is that it's a quality of life. And this is what Amazon is missing. But what REI is understanding is that REI says, let me put a building in Issaquah because I want to spread it out. There's a quality of life. Not everyone wants to sit in traffic all day or fight to find a parking spot. That is why people are turned off by Seattle. There's times when you want to go to Seattle, you can't find a place to park. You have to, let's say you wanted to go someplace, you have to park 4 or 5 blocks over and then try to figure out how to get there and fight traffic and everything else. It's a hassle. So the city was trying to build the streetcar system down there to try to alleviate some of that. But parking in Seattle sucks. And you have that same situation really in Bellevue. It just kind of sucks. And then the traffic issue. So it's a quality of life situation. Down here in Tacoma, when we talk about what are there to do, I can talk about the museum campus, right? You have the Glass Museum, you have the History Museum, you have the Auto Museum. All of these are within walking distance. You have the Children's Museum, you have the waterfront, the Maritime Museum, right? All right there. Art Museum, right there. You see what I'm saying? We have a theater district. So if you want to go see a play or whatever, it's right there. If you want to go and find some of the unique antiques that are around, we have Antique Row, which is a whole street section in downtown Tacoma. If you want to go to parks, we have tons of parks. We have Wright Park. We have Point Defiance, which is the second largest park in the country behind New York Central Park. We have Dunes Peninsula, which is a unique park that was built out of our sorrow, to be honest with you. That was a bad point in Tacoma's history where those are all the toxic dumping sites, right? That's where that is. And so the city redid all of that, redeveloped it. You have Point Ruston over there, which is kind of its own tourist attraction. You have the zoo. Bellevue doesn't have a zoo. You see what I'm saying? So when you're talking about quality of life and more of a city vibe, even though Tacoma doesn't hold a candle to what Bellevue offers in terms of just looks, it does offer for the average, normal, regular family, which the vast majority of the population in the U.S. is just your average middle-class family. You see what I'm saying? Bellevue is not a middle-class family city. There are middle-class people who live there, sure. And many of them are there because they existed before Bellevue became what it is, or they kind of live outside of there, or whatever the case may be. But if you're making a certain percentage where you're the 5% or greater, or 5% or higher, I should say. So the 1%ers and the 5%ers, that's not most people. These are facts. And that's not going to be most of the people who necessarily even live in Bellevue. These are facts. So one of the big things that I'm all about is being honest with people and also making sure folks are humble. Because I've had people oftentimes, and this is what happened in terms of folks from Seattle, they would trash every city with the exception of Seattle. And I said, you know what? Seattle has a lot of social issues that aren't really reported and people never really talk about. And so, hold on one second. Okay, so Noel had to leave. But anyhow, so when you're talking about that, it's a completely different thing. One of the things that Tacoma also does that some of these other cities don't do is that we had funded a massive arts program for the entire community. It's a tax initiative. There's $50 million for art programs. So performing arts, you name it. Cultural, ethnic events, that is what is down here. And so, yeah, Bellevue looks amazing. It's a great city. There's no question. I'm not speaking trash about it. However, it's not designed for most people any longer. Most people aren't going to be able to move there because they're saying that, hey, it's affordable, it's reasonable. I am not just eating cans of beans every night, right? You have to make a lot of money now in order to move there and actually buy a home. Otherwise, you're going to be apartment living. And for some people, that's fine. Other people, it's not. Keep in mind, too, that Seattle took that gamble of building nothing but apartment buildings. If you look at downtown Seattle, tons of high-rise apartment buildings, and a lot of them are sitting empty because people can't afford them. When you factor everything else in, they can't afford it. And you have to pay for your own parking space at most of these apartment complexes. Down here, you don't have that. I don't know of any part, when we came down here to Tacoma, we were calling apartment places for someone. And we asked, do you have to pay for parking? And I said, huh? Like, what? And they're like, no. I don't know of any apartment complex down here that charges you for parking. It Doesn't happen. So when you're talking about my money going farther, yeah. So Tacoma is on a slow, gradual growth. The reason why you don't have the skyrocketing growth that you have in Bellevue is because developers are not building. Facts. If you popped a few apartment buildings downtown that were 20 or 30 stories tall, they'd be full too. And the population would be much bigger than what it is. It's just that they're not doing that. They're building a lot of mid-rises, and they're building massive 2-block-long mid-rise buildings. But if you were to literally put what you need to, here's another example. If we had developers build up office buildings the way that they're supposed to, because there's no office space downtown in Tacoma that's available of size, then DaVita, the company that is a medical company, would have stayed in Tacoma. They left Tacoma because they don't have enough space for all of their employees. So they're moving them to Federal Way. Now, this is a short-sighted view because this was a few years ago when they decided to do that. And the city offered city-owned land in the Dome District to say, look, you can build whatever you want, but they're saying it's too expensive to build up. We're going to go to Federal Way and do that. But here's the problem. Some of these suburbs are not really designed for headquarters, like in other places. Like when you go to Dallas and you look at their suburbs, different, right? It's different. Here, it's not quite the same. It's very suburban, very suburban. And so when you look at the GSA, it moved from, I think, Auburn. It moved from there. And Tote, which is a maritime company, they moved their headquarters from Federal Way to downtown Tacoma. Both moved to downtown Tacoma. Why? Because their employees want to be able to go to some place where they can easily go to different restaurants, easily be able to go to the farmer's market and different things. Where the DaVita is at now, you don't have that. So it's kind of a short-sighted thing. Yeah, they have their 1,000 or 1,500 employees that they eventually are going to have all in one location, but you're not going to have the same experience. So REI understands that too. And that's why they're saying we don't want to just put everything right there in Bellevue, because we want to be able to spread it amongst the population. Not everybody wants to travel up to Bellevue to go to work and sit in traffic all day. Or have to, because again, a lot of the people who, and again, I know people who make a ton of money and they won't live in Seattle or Bellevue because they want to take big, nice vacations. They want to go to Europe for a month. They want to go to Asian countries for a tour and stay for a month. It's harder to do when you live in a place that really pulls a lot of your income just to live, just for housing. So the main point in this is that, yes, Bellevue is growing, no question at all. If Tacoma, and the gentleman said that soon Bellevue will overtake Tacoma in terms of population, you could very well be right, because there's a lot of investment going on in Bellevue in terms of developers and builders and Vulcan and Amazon and all that. However, if Amazon were to put the same energy here, the city of Tacoma would blow past a lot of different places too, because the cost of living is a lot more cheaper and affordable. And there has been rumor that Amazon wants to do that. There's been rumor that REI wants to do that. In fact, DaVita, once it does leave this year, you have a building downtown that's able to hold 500 people. So when you look at REI, when they went to Issaquah, they have a space big enough for 400 people. And that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to break it up over many different sites and still have folks who want to work from home do that, but they want to be able to have different sites. The reason why Amazon put that question to their people in Seattle is, what cities interest you, Redmond or Tacoma, or both? Is because a lot of their people may live down here and have to travel up. The interstate system going north, it sucks. And I tell people that it sucks. Even now, during the sickness, it sucked still. It just does. And so a lot of companies are saying we only have one major artery going north and south. So let's put our and a lot of people are looking. This is the hottest housing market down here. Pierce County is the hottest housing market in the country, especially when you look at Spanaway and you look at Tacoma, the two hottest. So when you have all of the people starting to move down here, the emphasis is where do we put offices where the people are so that they're not saying, let me find another option. Because technically a lot of tech companies are coming to Tacoma. They're not the big kahuna, but you have a lot of tech companies that are choosing Tacoma as a place to live, or as a place to be. And some of them have relocated from Seattle to down here. Why? It's a lot more affordable in terms of the office space that they need. They have access to the same labor pools and all of the talent and all of that. They have a less congested environment to deal with. It's different. So it's good that we have Bellevue the way that it is. I believe in that. I believe in the trifecta, if you will, right? I believe that having Bellevue the way that it is great because it's able to literally bring a lot of talent, a lot of people here, and it really helps everybody's housing values go up across the region. It's good to have Seattle in the position that it is, being the juggernaut that it is. It's very important. It's also important to have Tacoma where it is as well, which is mainly a major logistics hub. There's no other city in the state that has the logistics that Tacoma does. When we're talking about freight, when we're talking about cargo, ships, there's not one. So it's important to have all three of these cities working together. It's just trying to get the people of all those three cities and the companies of all of those three cities working together and have the same viewpoint that REI does. But anyhow, hope you enjoyed the video. Sorry that it's like a 40-minute long video. Make sure you join the Discord down in the description box below. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe. And until next time, I will see you. Take care.